Hello, everyone, and welcome to Answer the Call. This will be a sort of different Answer the Call than we've been doing, and I would like to start doing different ones in the future where I bring on more people, do some roundtable stuff, not just the me and the community. We are still going to do stuff like that, but today we have some special guests, and the first guest is Captain Berks. The second is XeroState, and then Morphologis. They're all here, sort of in order of who I talked to about this first. Berks messaged me, then I messaged both Zero and Morph, and in that order, I think is how everything was responded to. But we all kind of had feelings about this subject of accountability and concept sales. The Galaxy is a concept ship that just came out. There was 2 other ships that basically went on sale this season, this IAE season, but for some reason, the Galaxy has a lot of controversy or drama or polarizing opinions around it. And I thought, what better time than to have some of my friends on to talk about it and hear more than just what I have to say about it, but hear what other people have to say about it. I know XeroState talked about it on Twitter a little bit, and I'm sure on his stream, Berks as well, and Morph made a really, I think, really balanced video on the subject. So I think it's just a good time to talk about it. But Berks, you're the first person who messaged me, so kind of what were your initial feelings, and how do you feel now after the sales happened?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm still waking up a little bit.
Yes, I know it's
pretty
very
early for me, but
yeah.
yeah, I kind of have been feeling this way for a while. And the reason that I feel this way isn't. I think that one thing that I want to make clear with this entire, I guess podcast from my side is that I don't necessarily have an issue with concepts in themselves.
Okay.
Right, in their inception, I'm totally cool with concepts. I think that what I'm starting to get concerned with is that we're selling concepts of concepts, and it's at what point is like too far for I obviously CIG needs to pay their bills, and they need to keep people employed and make the video game, and that's totally fine. And I'm not trying to hinder funding or anything like that. I think that in principle, where my argument comes from and where my concern comes from is people who were promised or bought into specific visions of the game, and now that's being dogpiled on top of, and just like, hey, ignore this thing that we sold you 8 years ago. Here's this new shiny toy. Look at this instead. Look at this instead. Like, we have this new concept. Modularity was supposed to come out in these 30 other ships, but we're bringing it back for this new concept ship.
And you know what? We might actually make it with this one.
Yeah, hey guys, hey, don't worry, it's different this time. You know what I mean? It's like I'm in a relationship with, a crazy ex-girlfriend who is promising me all these things and saying it's going to be different this time. It's going to be different this time. Like it just feels like I don't know what to believe at this point.
I think we have the same ex-girlfriend, Berks.
Exactly. Yeah. Miranda? No, I'm just kidding. But it's like CIG is setting expectations for themselves that people are already like, oh, well, it's going to be multiple years. Oh, well, here's the next endeavor here. People are already backing themselves into this mindset of, oh, well, this is just another concept. And CIG has done this to themselves. But also the other side of that, and I feel like I will be playing devil's advocate a little bit today, just for the sake of for people, we don't all have the same opinion. So I'll try to ask some of the questions that are like people's concern with the other side of the argument.
Mm-hmm.
But it's I think it's interesting to talk about how CIG runs in this lane of making money and staying funded, but also not earning distrust with the community. So
yeah. Morph, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, I've had a similar feeling as Berks about this. I mean, I understand why they need to do it, and I think we can expand on this discussion. But just as to point out or just to talk about my point of view, I mean, I have the
Yeah,
general
like how
sense.
did you initially
is the same.
feel? You know?
I mean, I initially did feel the same way. I mean,
Yeah.
I think after making the video, I felt a little bit better, but
Yep.
yeah, no, it just feels like we keep getting more and more concepts, and there are so many ships in the backlog that it just kind of feels like a vicious cycle of constantly having to put out more ships to get more funding, and then expanding that backlog to the point where now, it's going to take them 7 to 8 years, best case scenario, to finish all of those ships, and that's insane. I mean, that is still a very long time. I mean, again, best case, it could be up to like 23 years if they're not able to increase the ship team size. So it's pretty nuts, man.
Yeah. And Zero, how did you feel about like just initial thoughts? And then, I think we've probably had a couple days to think on things, and maybe our opinions changed slightly, if any.
I mean, I think we're all here because we share a sentiment, right? And we all kind of share that same. There's like, it just feels kind of icky. Icky is the word that I've been using for it, where it just feels like this. You look at the situation, and you're like, there's no way that this can be short, and that's kind of where, we backed 10 years ago, and we were like, well, this could be a cool game in a few years, and then you start to get to the point of like the Cutlass Steel, right? Where it's just like nobody liked how that felt for the most part. I mean, some people did, but whatever. And it's like more ships, more features, announced vaguely, and so it becomes kind of frustrating seeing that backlog and just looking at it going, look, like Morph said, best case scenario, 5, 6, 7 years to wait for a lot of these things. And it's like, maybe that's best case scenario. And how often does development hit best case scenario, and at the same time, I mean, I don't think any of us are here trying to, shit on the developers or shit on the community for buying ships or funding the game or whatever. Like, it's not that. It's just we want to have a conversation around something that looks not great, and try to figure that out as a community, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's like the really important thing here that I want to make clear. Like, I know when I reacted to ISC, I prefaced that right away. Was like, I just want to say I am a fan of Star Citizen. I like the game. In fact, love the Galaxy as a ship, and don't want that to be about this,
And that's what makes me mad, but we'll get to that.
yeah.
That's what makes me mad.
Yeah, I really like its look and like kind of what it can do. It definitely hits, certain things with me with refining, and I'm really looking forward to stuff like that. So I like the ship as a concept, right? But I'm very much with the idea of, I've been around since the beginning, and I've watched this happen so many times. And at some point, if you just let the water just sit there, or the pasta just sit there and boil, it's going to boil over if you don't pay attention to it. And I think that's what CIG has kind of done, is it's just been so easy. And like the grossest thing, like the icky feeling, is I think the SCL before this one, or something, one of them just said, just draw a pretty picture, right? And it was like, man, you work there and you said that, and I was like, do you really, like, I wonder if I'm definitely looking into this a little probably incorrectly, but I wonder if that was like their mentality at work. Like, hey, all we got to do is just draw a pretty picture and we'll be all right. And I was like, oh shit, man, that one's like stuck to me a little bit. And I was like, that's where the icky feeling started. And then the ship comes and I'm like, okay. And then the real icky feeling was what Berks talked about, was like, hey, this might be the one that we're actually gonna start making player facing modularity with, even though in the monthly report we were working on it with the Retaliator. So it's just a weird one, and it's a weird feeling, and it's an icky feeling, and I think I have some ideas for solutions, but I kind of want to hear more on what you guys are feeling about it. So I don't know. It's this is one that's tough to navigate without just either getting really frustrated or defending them. How do you guys feel about buying ships in general? Like the way that the game is funded? There's not much we could do about it, but
there's not much we can do about it, and I think it's been since the very beginning, since I backed Star Citizen, I knew that that's what I was getting into, that it was a ship, or was a game funded by ships. So I mean, I'm not upset that they're selling
Mhm.
ships to fund the game. That's not really the issue. It's just the increasing backlog. And well, I think there's a big reason for it that I want to discuss. But first, let's go around the room and about people's thoughts about this, and then I'll add some information to the conversation that I went over in the video, because I don't think everybody probably has seen that, and I think
Yeah.
it's worth adding to the conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mhm.
Zero, what it like just ship sales in general, like how do you feel about them, and cool with it, not cool with it, or just indifferent?
I guess, I mean, what Morph said is kind of true. I mean, I figured out pretty early on,
Yeah.
that this wasn't just like buy a ship, and be part of the dream in a couple of years.
Hmm.
It's been a decade since I did that. And so you fall into this mentality of no understanding what it is. But then you have moments that feel icky, like the whole Cutlass Steel thing. I'll probably bring it up again. Just be ready
Sure.
for that. But it just, there's moments like that where it just feels like, okay, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like even my leniency towards loving CIG as a developer, that decision they made, like with the Cutlass Steel, the pricing and everything like that, and maybe a little bit with the Galaxy thing, maybe the ship backlog, whatever, it just has this kind of icky feeling to it. So that's kind of my thoughts on it now. It's not so much that it's souring, it's just like, oh, there's a crack in the wall right there, and I don't like that. So
Before we go to Berks, Morph, what year did you back?
I backed. Shoot, it might have been 2016 or maybe a little earlier than that.
Okay, Zero, what about you?
2013,
Okay.
late 2013.
Okay. And Berks, when did you back? And then same question from before.
This is crazy to me hearing everyone's answer to that. I backed in like late 2018.
Yeah.
So almost 2019.
Okay.
And yeah.
And then about ship sales. So just care,
So
don't
when
care,
I first
indifferent?
bought the game, I bought the Mustang Alpha thinking that I had bought this rare collectible. Like I thought I had like the gem of the sea.
Well, you did,
and
because nobody used it, but
that's probably true. Yeah. I was like people came into my chat. Like when I first streamed the game, they're like, what ship do you have? And I was like, I have the Mustang Alpha. And like thinking that I had gotten this like sweet ship. I didn't even know that you could buy ships at that point. I had no
Okay.
idea. Like I just knew about the Aurora and the Mustang. That's it.
Yeah.
And then I found out about ship sales and I was like, oh, sweet. Like that's a way to get new ships, because it was so hard to earn ships in game at that point.
Yeah.
And then a couple months in, I started to realize, and this is my personal opinion, that I think that ship sales, personally, I think that it kind of cripples the game and cripples gameplay. Do I think that it's okay that ship sales happen? Yeah, and that's not really what my point was going into today.
Mhm.
But I've never liked ship sales, and I think that the game would be better without them. Do I think funding would be better without them? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I think the game would be better. So going into the conversation, I'm not trying to stop ship sales, but I'm not a fan of them for sure.
Yeah, I thought it would be good to share how we all feel about it, and I'll share mine now. Is I backed in 2013-ish as well, and the reason I asked the question of when you guys backed was this reason in particular. Is there was a different air of when Star Citizen would release at the time, and that when Star Citizen did release, they would stop ship sales. So the idea of a backlog existing was never something that crossed our minds back then. And if there was a backlog, it was the Idris, right? It was like the big, really, really big ship that we knew would take a lot of time. It all made more sense than it does now. And I was very much of the, okay, I do not like ship sales, but only these ships will be the ones that they sell, and then future ones will not be. So I was like kind of okay with that. And then obviously time has gone on, and we are where we are today. I'm very much along the mentality of Berks, with the idea that ship sales hindered what the game could have been. But I don't think if they do things right, ship sales and ships are going to have less of an impact, and it'll be more on your reputation and these other things, right? They have tools to make a good game
Sure.
without it.
I agree.
But it would have been much cooler if they had like proper ship progression, right? Like, hey, choose your selection of starting ships here, guys. You all start with the starter, and then you move in whatever direction you want ship-wise later. Would have been a really cool thing, and it's not going to happen, and that's okay, as long as other cool stuff happens in the future. So that's sort of where I'm at with that, and I think it's really good to get that out there. Now, Morph, I'll kick it over to you on some of the things that you've shared in your video about, you did a lot of math on when these
table napkin math, yeah.
Yes, but also I thought you were really just you thought about it, and I think you came to like a fairly solid conclusion on how you feel about things. But go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. So the video began basically with a spreadsheet that I had done where I had taken all the remaining ships and added them up per year, and that came to a number of around 35 years. And that was not linear, so it wasn't like from now till 35 years from now that's when that would be done. It was just like 35 years worth of work to do on ships. And I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but I had somebody, I won't say who, looked at those numbers, who definitely is trustworthy, saying, oh, those are probably still pretty optimistic. So it was probably more than 35 years. So then what I did is I instead tried to imagine them as being created in parallel. So then I moved some of those numbers around and matched up, like if it was half a year to do a ship or a quarter to do a ship, I matched those up together next to each other to kind of get a more reasonable look at how quickly they'd put ships, and also kind of using in the back of my mind the experience I have and having followed Star Citizen with how many ships they typically put out at a given time. So I think it's pretty accurate, with the one important facet of it being that John Crew, and I actually put the clip in my video to support what I was saying, said that if he were to snap his fingers and say, let's work on the Polaris, it would take the entire UK ship team 12 to 18 months, during which time no other ships would get done. And I know, there's a US team, but he specifically said no other ships would get done. So what I think that means is that even the US team would be helping, and it would take everybody right now to work on a big ship like the Polaris. So taking that into consideration, how many capital ships are left, we have to look at those as like a full year of development per cap ship. And when you add all that together, and you also take into consideration every single year, they're probably going to add another year of concept ships. It's just never going to stop. It came to around 23 years. But that is just assuming two things. It's assuming that the ship team stays the same size, which it probably won't. That's not the plan. And two, it assumes that they won't become more efficient with the ship production. And so I did a little bit, more figuring, and then I thought 7 to 8 years, not 78
78.
years.
Well, you never know.
78. 7 to 8 years. Yeah, you never know. 78 years seems like a reasonable time just to finish the backlog. And that doesn't take into account at all the 100 existing ships that need to be gold standard, including some ships like the Caterpillar, which has a lot of work left. I mean, that thing's going to have to pretty much be redone from the ground up by the ship team to make it work with all the new ship systems. So there is a lot of work for them to do.
And that doesn't account the 4 to 5 concept ships that would come out each of those 7 to 8 years.
No, that's what that's what the number came from. The 23 years.
You added the concepts there.
I added, so basically what I did is I figured how many years it would take to do the existing concepts, and then I added a year for each year of that development, and that's how I got 23.5 years. Okay. So that includes concepts. Yeah. But they could add more. Some years they add more, some years they add less.
Yeah.
But
I think we had 5
anyway,
this year.
We had 5 this year, and they weren't capital ships. I don't know if they actually took like a full year of development, but they may have. Now, the reason why this has to happen, and I don't know if I'm getting ahead of the conversation a little bit here, but I think it's worth talking about, is that ever since the first, 2012 to 2013 sale that they did, with Chris Roberts talking about Star Citizen and Squadron 42, very few sales, I would argue, have actually been for Squadron 42. Mm-hmm. The majority of it has been from content creators making content on Star Citizen, posting videos and their own ship stuff, right? So I would say the lion's share of the money they have is from ship sales. And what that actually translates into then is that from that point, from that initial sale until now, the ship pipeline has been the backbone of Star Citizen's funding and has supported Squadron 42's development, even more so now these past 3 to 4 years than before, as they're dedicating like 90% of their resources now to that game's development. So I think it's worth pointing out that the reason why they're doing so many of these, I think, is clearly because they have now 800 plus developers working on Squadron 42, which isn't paying for itself. So they need something to pay for it, and that's more JPEG ships.
Yep.
Hate it or love it. I mean, that's what's happening. And now we can discuss, is this the best course of action? Are they going to be able to get out of this hole? I made the argument in the video that, if they're able to put out Squadron 42 and have it start paying for itself, it will relieve some of that financial pressure. But who knows what the long term of that's actually going to look like. So I open the floor again to everybody else. To talk about this information. I just thought it was worth sharing it because it's important, I think, to contextualize the conversation.
Berks, you look ready.
Yeah, I mean, I am ready. And I feel like there's lots to talk about, right? And I think that like one of my main concerns is not necessarily it's like, again, I'll say it again. I have no problem with really releasing concept ships. However, when you have 10 capital ships in the backlog and our last capital ship came out 4 years ago, the question is like, is it cool of CIG? Is it respectful of CIG? Is it what's the word here? I don't know if I want to use the word predatory, but is
ethical,
it like
maybe?
Is
Ethical.
it wrong,
Yeah.
ethical of CIG to add another capital ship on top of that, right? And some people argue that I'm talking about the Odyssey here specifically, but some people argue, is the Odyssey a capital ship? Is it subcapital? I think it's more subcapital, but still, it's a lot of work. Is the question, right? Like Morph is saying that there's all these ships that need to go gold standard, which is like a really great point. The ship team has, when I look at the backlog and when I look at the list of the ships and I look at the gold standard and I look at everything the ship team has to do, I don't see a backlog. What I see is like, this is a massive amount of work that we have to ask ourselves the question, can it be done in a reasonable amount of time? Because there are some people who they didn't sign on to Star Citizen for the Galaxy. They signed on for the Endeavor. They signed on for, the Apollo. They signed on for, whatever ship, or they bought into a dream of like the Ranger or whatever. And I'm totally cool with CIG selling concept ships, but like when they're pushing a ship so hard as like the next new big thing, when like literally the gameplay that's attached to it is conceptual, which by the way is probably my biggest problem with concepts. When CIG releases ships and concepts for gameplay that does not exist in the video game yet, that is wild to me. That is wild. That they push ships that have data running, that they push ships before today that had salvage, that they have pushing ships that are modular, when that stuff doesn't exist in the video game, right? They need to put a proof of concept in the video game before selling us these dreams over and over and over again. And
Berks, the Galaxy is going to be the thing that starts off the modularity development.
I think the thing that exactly,
the Odyssey
right?
killer.
Like, and this is the thing that pisses me off so much is the point that CIG is trying to FOMO us so hard, even in the wording. This is the Q&A wording. All right. Do you have questions about the recent revealed RSI Galaxy, the truly modular ship that redefines multi-crew gameplay? Well, now's your chance to ask. Like, the CIG is trying to FOMO us so hard into buying each and every next step of the ship. And man, that bothers me. It bothers me.
My question.
What does it? Go ahead, Zero. Go ahead.
My question about the Galaxy is, does it punch above its weight class? That's the important question.
What other big ship does it kill? Right? That's very important here. But the thing that I was going to ask you, Berks, is what about it bothers you? Because here's what's going to happen, and I'm going to sound a little Like, you three are gonna look at me with a funny face as a fellow creator. I already know what the comments are gonna say. You guys are, they're gonna get into the hating of the content creator. What about it bothers you? Get out of the like, share your I don't know how to say this, but what about it bothers you? And I'll just leave it that way.
Yeah, I'll say it again because I already stated it, but let me be more clear. Is what bothers me is CIG is selling gameplay that doesn't exist, right? And that was okay 8 years ago. But 10 years into development, and I know some comments going to be like, actually, it's not 10 years.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years. Okay. Look at the backlog. Those ships were promised 9.5 years ago.
Especially the banner merchantmen, right? So,
yeah. Right. And so when they're doing things like proving that they can't put these things out that they're promising, then what I want is just CIG to just prove me wrong. I want to be wrong in this conversation. I want to be wrong. I really do. I want CIG to prove me wrong.
What I mean when I ask that is, does it matter? Like, okay, because you mentioned this at the beginning, which was, you were upset that you really like the Galaxy, right? And then for me, I look at it as, well, I'm not going to buy it in concept. So why should I care? Why does it bother me so much? And that's more what I'm trying to get at. Because yes, it is really frustrating that that they're doing these things. But the argument from the commenter is going to be, if you don't like it, you don't have to buy it.
Right.
And then what do you say to that person, right? What do you say to the person who says that to you?
Just because you don't have to buy something doesn't mean the marketing is ethical.
Yes.
And I think that for CIG because at the end of the day, what are Lego selling? The same thing that CIG is selling, which is dreams, like the point is that it's like they're selling an item that people can buy and they can dream about. They're selling a promise, a dream to a specific type of person, right? Whether that's the Apollo because they want to do like space medical gameplay, or whether that's the Orion because they have this dream of flying through an asteroid field and crushing up rocks. And when it's like, at some point you have to say like, okay, CIG, you either got to deliver on the promise or you have to like stop like making this promise over and over and over again. You have to stop making this gameplay that you're telling us is coming soon, right around the corner. We just need this one more system in, So I would be much more okay if they sold the Galaxy with no new gameplay attached. If it was just the Galaxy with no modules in it and no like refinery gameplay and even the medical gameplay is fine to me because it's not attached to a gameplay loop that does not exist. And we don't know when it's going to exist. And I feel like that's the disingenuous part, mainly.
Yeah. I think the thing that I keep questioning in my own mind is, why do I care whether or not their business practices are proper, as long as they keep pushing forward and delivering the game that I want to play? So if somebody else is buying these ships that I'm not going to buy, well, that's kind of thank you for helping to continue funding the project for me. But what I don't like about it, and where the icky feeling and why I've said all the things that I've said up to this point, is because we're all part of the community. And one of the things that Star Citizen's always done is make us really feel a part of the project. And when they do things like that, it makes you feel bad because you feel part of this thing that is bad, right? And is doing bad things. And that's why I feel more passionate or upset about how things have been going over the last, quite a few years, but really coming to a head today, is because of that. It's because we're all part of this. We're all in this together. And at this point, do you really feel in it together with them if you feel like they're just looking at you as a wallet or a number and as a consumer instead of as a part of the community?
Right.
Right. And I think that's where I take issue with things.
I think let me say this. Let me clarify. I think that I would have. Can we all agree here that nobody here would have an issue with the Galaxy if it was straight to flyable?
No, of course not. Nobody had an
issue.
issue with
no.
the CR.
Would anyone here have it?
right?
Yeah, I wouldn't have had an issue. And you know what the funny thing is the process would be exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's the way that they're presenting the promises. That's the issue, right?
I think it's, I think it comes down to just a promise. I mean, let's contextualize this with the past year or the past couple of years that, as you were alluding to, Mike. I mean, it has felt like update after update that features that were on the roadmap have been disappointing and lackluster, and like the upcoming cargo refactor is not what a lot of us expected it was going to be, and it's just been a very deflating couple of years since that last in-person Citizen Con. It just felt like we've been coasting and coasting. And I know that, we all know as content creators that, yeah, PES is around the corner. They're going to get in, Pyro and server meshing. Yeah, but it just, the reality is for the past 3 years, it's just felt like we've been coasting and just like existing on promises. And so for them to come out with another promise, like, hey, I know these past few years haven't been great, but hey, I got this ship here for new gameplay. You buy it, we'll deliver it. We will, those past 3 years, that's just a hiccup. That's just kind of how it feels, I think, to me. Even though logically, when I really think about it, I shouldn't be too upset because this is how they make their money. I know this is how they make their money. I've known this since the beginning, and yet it still, for some reason, doesn't quite feel right. And as you said, Berks, if it were a real ship, if it were a ship delivered, I wouldn't feel that way. And I think the reason is because it is a delivered piece of content. Like, it's something we can experience that possibly has some gameplay associated with it. Like, the Vulture or something. So yeah, it's in the C8R and the Cutter, I think, were great additions. I mean, I'm happy that they sold a lot of them because the Cutter's a great new a new choice for a new player to have. I think more entry level ships for new players to choose is a great thing. And then introducing a ship that has a function and a kind of a gameplay loop, it doesn't really work very well. But they're adding a ship that gives a way in for new players to try out a new gameplay loop. I think that's fine. Yeah. It's just that concept ships, man.
What I love about those two ships in particular, and why straight to flyable ships makes so much more sense, is the idea that those ships are a result as their reaction to both our feedback and the way that we play. So like, it just totally makes sense for the C8R to exist with a ship like the Carrack with the medical bed that's in that, right? And the Cutter is just making more sense based off of, well, starter ships are really starting to look more like the Cutter, more like the Titan, rather than the way the MR looks like now. And Berks's very rare Mustang Alpha, they starter ships just don't look like that anymore. They're starting to look much more like the Cutter and the Titan than ever before, because they now understand what's important to the player and how players play. Right?
Maybe we're scratching at a little bit of the solution. I'm sorry. XeroState, you've hardly spoken. I really want to hear your thoughts on this.
I was going to jump to.
I just want to say,
I'm from the Midwest. It's just my life.
Just standing in the cornfield.
I'll make a passive aggressive Twitter tweet. Or I'll make a passive aggressive tweet about this later. It's fine.
All right. You know what? XeroState, you laid on us, man. What are your thoughts on this? We'll go back into
he
whatever
loves
I have to say
ships.
later.
I love them. Idea. He wants more.
I bought 800 Galaxies-ish, 800-ish. I don't even know how
bought the whole universe.
All of them.
No wonder. That's why they made so much money.
Yep, Chris Roberts' next yacht. It's on me, guys. All right, anyway. So I was talking about this with some people on the stream the other day, and I kind of posed the question like, okay, so would you be more comfortable with CIG working on a ship, giving you updates on that ship's progress, and then putting it in for sale as concept, knowing that it's going to be released within, granted, you can't give guarantees. I know somebody's going to say it because they always do. But if you knew that ship was going to be released within a year, they had worked on it for like 4 years or whatever, 3 years. And it's at this point where they can sell it and they can say within a year, like 12 months tops, we will have this in the game. If that's the kind of concept sales that they had, I think I'd be more cool with it, even if it wasn't straight to flyable. I think that's would be a happy medium. I'm sure it can't happen that way for one reason or another, but there's just things like that. But if it's like, here's a concept ship, here's a JPEG, literally a JPEG or a .png, I'm sure they're bougie like that, that they sell for hundreds of dollars, right? Hundreds of dollars. And it's like, it's going to be modular. Okay, what's that modularity going to look like? We don't know. You know, it's going to be this size. It's going to have this kind of shield. It's going to have these kind of capabilities. It's going to have this kind of refinery. Well, what are the details on any of that shit? You know, none of it. None of it's been built. None of it. There hasn't been a beam made in that ship in anybody's, I don't know, blender or whatever they use. You know, there hasn't been a logo made on that ship, right? It's all just pictures, and they don't even know. And they're selling it to us for hundreds of dollars 5 years before it's in the game, you know, 6 years before it's in the game. And that's where that icky feelings you kind of feel about, where you're just like, this is just like, and there's 15 of those ships that are just like that. And some of those ships have been that way for 6 years already. And they're not even 6 years from release. It seems like some of those ships that are already like that. And they're just piling on top of that. Like if you saw a guy at the front of a traffic jam, just dumping more cars on the front of that traffic jam, you'd be like, that guy's a fucking asshole, right? That's what you would say. You'd be like, that guy's an asshole. And it starts to feel like they're kind of being that way with this ship backlog. It's like you're making the traffic jam longer, and you know you're making it longer with unknown things that you're selling to these players for hundreds of dollars, and making development take longer for these ships that people already bought so long ago. And I think that's where a lot of the feeling of like, I don't know, distrust starts to creep in, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of where I'm at with it, is like, I feel like if things were done a little bit differently. And then the scary question to ask for me is, where do they go from here? Is there a way that they can, you know, bend this back into shape? You know, can they bend this model back into shape where they can start to catch up and then stop doing these things? Or are they just down this road now and they have to keep going, you know?
Yesterday was the biggest, apparently, I heard this on my stream, so I don't know how much I can trust them, the biggest single day they've ever had.
I believe it, honestly.
Yep, same.
I believe it. And so it's like, the question is, why would CIG ever listen to anything we're saying when obviously what they're doing is working so well?
Yeah. And that's sort of why I touched on that with you, Berks, a little bit, is like the why does it make you feel so bad if you're not planning on buying it anyway? But then it doesn't change the way it is. It doesn't change the way everything is. It's still not good. The ickiness of everything is still there.
Yeah.
But it's the reinforcing of something that's clearly just, you know, what's wrong with gaming, right? Is all gamers are, there's no passion there anymore. All gamers are just consumers, and it's just not the way it used to be, blah, 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 right?
Someone said something in chat earlier that I forget their name, but I thought they had a really good point. And they're like, maybe CIG can keep getting away with this because they keep getting a newer and newer audience that isn't desensitized to concept ships. So for them, the Galaxy is their first concept ship, right? Or maybe their second. But for us who have been, you know, back in the game for longer, or maybe have a good insight into the history of Star Citizen, we're like, oh, here we go again. Like, this is just the same thing. That's why so many of us are like, if they released it, like, how hype would it have been if they were like, hey guys, we don't have this ready for you right now, but in 3.18 we have the Galaxy ready with full modularity, and guess what? It's coming to more ships in Star Citizen, and we're preparing that path. That would have been so hype, right? Yeah. Oh, modularity, holy moly. But what I'm being sold at this IE was the promise of something that may or may not come in the next 1, 2, 3. I mean, we don't know how long. And before someone in the comments will be like, oh, well, modularity is actually not that hard to implement. Well, guess what? That doesn't matter until it's in, right? Like, it doesn't matter that the, you know, Idris is almost done, the Javelin's almost done, until it is in our hands. It doesn't matter how close it is. It could get 99%. But if it takes another 10 years to get that 1% more, then what does it matter if it's 99% done, right?
Yeah, and maybe it's not hard to do in your Unreal Engine 5 that you're playing around with on your computer, but it's very clear that it seems like everything is difficult for Star Citizen to do based on the scale of their game and all the other factors that come into play. So you could say it is what it is, but it's clearly not the case with CIG for whatever reasons. But yeah. Morph, you look like you were ready to say something, so I don't know. I'll jump to you real quick. I'm not sure if you had something on your mind. I apologize if I'm catching you off guard.
No. I wanted to add that I don't think you made an offhand comments about you commented about one of the CIG ship team members making an offhand comment about, just draw a JPEG picture.
Yes.
I don't, and having spoken with and knowing some of the ship team designers, and I don't want to name any names, just getting a sense for how they feel about things. I think it is they see it as we see it. I mean, it's not like because they're inside they don't feel a bit frustrated. They certainly do. I mean, whenever a new ship is introduced, whenever, it's like, hey, guys, we got to do this new ship so that we can keep the game funded, and it takes them off the Banu Merchantman that they've been working on for the past year, it's a frustrating experience. They want to finish out and deliver a product. It is frustrating to work on something and not see the fruits of that labor, see people appreciate that labor. So I think that's why they're doing it. But the crux of the issue is that they're doing it because they need to fund the project. They need more and more money to keep making hiring more people and to retain more talent. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
It's not like I don't think anybody here is like this. We should appreciate the ship designers and the ship developers and things, like, because they're working hard. Like if you join a company, like a development company, the people at the time, I mean, this is true in IT, it's true in almost every job. When you join, like, even the base level or even, middle, whatever it might be, you're kind of at the whim of somebody else often-ish. Somebody makes a decision above you, you have to change focus, and I'm sure a lot of these guys read Spectrum, or guys and gals read Spectrum, or maybe they're here or wherever in streams, YouTube videos, that kind of thing, and they're going, man, it just sucks that the community feels that way. I hate it as much as they do. So I don't want it to be like, we're shitting on all the developers or anything, but just the general direction of some of these decisions of the company that I think that could be shit on. And rightfully so.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's why I started right away with, like, I like the ship. I like the this has nothing to do with any of this. It just was the straw that broke the camel's back in some scenario. Like, and I mentioned this before, and this is going to sound, again, another like weird content creator thing, but I've never had so many people like a tweet of mine in my life. And that was like one of the worst put together tweets I ever did. I just took 3 pictures and said they all look the same. They're all concepts and they're never coming out. And it just shows that, like, there's a lot more people that share that same frustration. And it's there, you can't ignore that. Like, as the company, there's got to be something that, like, you can't ignore this. It doesn't mean that they have to stop doing it, or we're here saying that this is bad, you need to stop doing this. Like, there's no, like, cancel culture, like, garbage that's going on here with them in any way. It's more of this is something you have to start paying attention to, because it might actually affect the funding of the game in the long term. Like, they keep doing this in the short term, putting out these ships, but the long term is happening now, where people that have been around for a while are just clearly frustrated with the way things are being handled, and it's
So I'm going to ask you a question, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
And this because I said I'm going to be playing the other side of the spectrum, just to play devil's advocate a little bit. What about the fact that John Cruz said that they're not going to be releasing ships anymore that don't have gameplay? What do you guys think about that? That's why the capital ships aren't in yet.
I think we already have tons of ships that don't have gameplay, and we've always liked flying them. You reclaimer owners out there, you've been flying your reclaimers like idiots for years, and you don't care. You don't care what people think about you. You go low flying in that sumbitch, right? Like, you don't care, because it's your ship and it's cool as hell and it gives you alien vibes. There hasn't been any salvage gameplay for that thing ever. You just like flying it. So it's like, if they made the Galaxy today and it had none of its gameplay, how many of you Galaxy owners would get in the pilot seat and go fly that thing? Of course you would, because it's your ship. You like it. Like, you don't need that to make the gameplay. I can't remember who it was. It was Detox. He made a big video. It was like 60-player fight, right? And somebody retweeted that, and I retweeted that like an idiot. But they said, this is all pure gameplay. It's all made by the players. There was no game system involved here. There was no missions involved here. There was no event in-game involved here. It was just players flying their ships, making content with those ships. And it's like, that's what we have. We do that all the time. Berks goes bounty hunting in a cutter. It's not a bounty hunting ship, but he does it. And he makes it work most of the time. And that's exactly what we could do with all these. If they released a concept ship and it didn't have its gameplay when it was put in the game, like, that's a bummer in its own way, right? Like, it's nice to have the gameplay for a ship that comes out, but to draw this hard line of, we want to have the gameplay for the ship, I don't know if that's always got to be the case, because we have clear examples of ships that don't have their gameplay that have been in the game for years that we've been enjoying the whole time.
Yeah,
So-
but to go ahead. Go ahead,
No, go
guys.
ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Mike.
I was
Go
going to
ahead,
say
'cause
that
I was-
that's a super fair point, but the thing is this came to a head at some point as well, where people were frustrated by things like
True.
them making ships like the Reclaimer and not delivering.
True. Yeah, and that's been complained
on their-
about too.
Yeah.
The Reclaimer,
Yeah.
has been complained about for years as well. You know,
Right.
but yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's another underlying bigger benefit to that mindset, though, that I think is a good thing that they should stick to, because the creation of ships is not just the artists, it's also programmers, it's also gameplay team members who work in concert with the ship team to make sure that the gameplay is functioning. By saying we can only release ships with gameplay, it lights a fire under the butts of the people who are responsible for gameplay to work together to make actually something meaningful with the ships when they're introduced into the game. And at this stage of development, 10 years in, I think it's definitely a good thing to really start saying, hey, we don't get funding unless we get more gameplay into the game with these ships. So work hard and make something of this ship. So I personally think it's fine. What you're saying is totally true, XeroState, but personally, I would definitely rather have ships that come into the game have something more meaningful to them rather than just being another Gladius.
Yeah, that's fair.
Berks, you were
Wait,
gonna jump
hold
in?
on a second. I heard that the Idris and Javelin were locked behind Squadron 42. That's why they're not out. Is that not true?
No.
I have no idea.
They,
I mean,
no,
you can
they-
steal an
okay,
interest and fly it in the game.
I can't actually point to specifically what video they said this, but they directly answered this question. They said both of those ships are nowhere near ready because they're only for Squadron 42, which was very disappointing to hear. I was under the impression they were ready to, but they're not.
Since
Yeah.
there's so
Not anywhere
many,
near ready.
I think that, and this is my issue, right? Is throughout development, I think that we all get slapped in the face a lot in terms of like, oh wait, hold on a second. And I think one of those moments for me was like even CitizenCon this year when we saw Pyro. I've been telling people for months that I thought Pyro was done. I was like, it's done. It's 100% finished. There's no way it's not done. And then we see it at CitizenCon, and they're showing us like, oh well, this moon's not fully finished, and like this isn't finished, and this isn't done, and this isn't done. And I'm like, oh wow, like I didn't realize like they still have so much to do even on Pyro. And I get the same feeling when talking about chips, right? Like, I mean, me and a bunch of people, right, were like, oh yeah, it's possible that the Bond Enrichment comes out for the IAE. And here we are the week before the IAE realizing, oh wait, it's actually going to be a lot longer on the Bond Enrichment. And I think that it's you have to keep it realistic with yourself and not set these expectations, right? Because CIG will sometimes accidentally do it, and then you have to like kind of remind yourself, oh wait, this is going to take longer.
Yeah, I'm really happy. Like they were pretty open about the Band of Merchantmen and sort of what happened there. That the devs that were working on it, one of them or two of them or however many left. So, you know, whatever reasons why they left, we don't know, and that doesn't matter. But that's why that happened. And that is something that nobody can get upset about. Those things happen. Maybe you can go, hey, they need, like, you know, more casually mentioned it a little bit there, was retain talent and not just acquire new talent. And that's something that's always been and as they've been quite open with, is that CIG is more of a passion project for developers rather than a big paying studio. So
And
that's one of those
10 years
things.
is 10 years is a very long time to
Yeah.
stay at one place. I
Yeah.
mean, in this industry, I mean, I had a friend who worked for Activision, he did Black Ops 2, and he actually talked to me about why he left. It wasn't because he didn't, you know, he wasn't making money. It's because if he left, he actually got seniority at a new company. Because when you leave one place and you go to another, they up your pay. So sometimes it's just about, you know, wanting to do right by yourself and make sure that you can pay your bills and buy a nice house. So
It's all just, it's in the end, it's we're the people who want to play the game. The passion is there, and it'll always be there for the backers or the players. But some people, it's just a job. You know, it's your job. You're going to your job. Like, I don't know. Some people are super passionate about their job. Some people are going to their job just to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But I just like how that they were sort of open about that and shared that. And then I was like, oh, okay. I mean, not much we could do there about banner merchant sucks. But then right behind it is Galaxy, and you're just like, fuck.
Right. So I think like a real question that we need to ask ourselves, and this is going to be a unintentionally depressing question, so I apologize, but let's say the backlog truly takes the worst case scenario route, right? What are we saying? Like worst case scenario, 35 years?
20 about 20 years.
20 years,
20
worst
years,
case
yeah.
scenario. That's with new concepts or without?
With new concepts.
With new concepts. Okay, so what happens in 10 years when, and this, you know, potentially couldn't happen, right? But let's say, Ubisoft comes out with Star Citizen 2 and it's better in every way. Like, I mean, I guess you just swallow the pill at that point and just be like, okay, well, you know, I bought this concept ship. It's still not in Star Citizen. And now there's this better game out, you know,
just go play the better game.
Go play the better game.
Yeah.
You know, I guess.
See, here's the thing. I actually, and
it's a real question you have to ask yourself.
I'm not trying to white knight Star Citizen or anything, but I don't think that's ever going to happen because with the current game industry, the 2-year cycle would never allow for a game development studio to ever make a game that Star Citizen's trying to be. I mean, Star Citizen isn't really a game yet. I know, but I'm just saying somebody trying to make another Star Citizen is going to be really hard given.
I don't disagree with you.
I agree.
I don't disagree, but how video games work is someone's going to come up with something better eventually, right?
Sure.
And engines like Unreal Engine 5, which aren't natively going to support games like Star Citizen, but neither does, Lumberyard, are eventually going to be developed in a way that they could potentially support a game like Star Citizen. And maybe that's 5 years from now, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 30. But eventually, someone's gonna come out with something. Maybe it's 50 years from now. Who knows, right? But I feel like someone's gonna fill that spot eventually. Just like I played Skyrim and I played Fallout 76 and I played whatever. Something better will come out. So I guess for people buying into the game or buying ships that seem far out, like the Endeavor, I guess like the question you have to ask yourself is like, will I get this ship before I can use it? You know what I mean? Or I guess, will I be able to use this ship before it's still relevant in the terms of these 20-year long dates?
Right. That's the interesting thing for me is like, okay, let's say it's not worst case scenario, not best case scenario, 15 years, right? Till a lot of these ships are done.
God, that's still worse.
If you guys don't think in 15 to 20 years that somebody somewhere is going to come up with something better in a lot of ways than what Star Citizen currently is or could be in the next 10 to 15 years.
Here's the thing.
You're
They
out of
don't
your
have
minds.
to come up with something better. You could just get
You
bored
guys
of
are
this.
crazy. You
Something
guys are
different
crazy.
Yeah,
Star Citizen's only been in conception for 10 years. You don't think that in 15 or 20 years someone could come with something better? You guys are wild.
Well, God, anybody can come up with something better for what Star Citizen is right now. But the
True.
idea of Star Citizen is so insane that, like Morph said, no development studio would ever be so stupid to do something like this because no other development studio has a funding model where they could draw a pretty picture. Draw a pretty picture and make $3 million in a day.
Hey, listen, also you guys are JPEG right now. I swear to God. All right, ladies and gentlemen in the chat, I'm selling this napkin for $500. I'm going to sell it to the highest bidder. Let's go, boys.
We're going to sell the napkin that Morph did his math on for his video.
Star Citizen 2 right now. Listen, guys, it's got a capital class shield. It's got a capital class shield. Let's go, boys. It's modular.
I got 501 in the chat. 501. Oh, we got
Berks,
520.
if you rip it in half, you can sell it. Rip it in half, you can sell it twice. Put it on a copier, you can sell it a bunch of times.
Oh, God. It just comes down to the funding model of the game is what supports the idea of the game being what it is. And it's the only way to do this, too, right? To kind of come full circle on this a little bit.
Yeah, what I think is more likely is that somebody's going to come up with a game with much more limited scope that hits all the marks that a science fiction nerd is looking for, and it's going to draw their attention. Right now, the science fiction gaming genre is super dry and devoid of anything interesting happening except for Starfield. So it's not always going to be that way, and then a lot can happen in 10 years. Somebody might come out and say, "Hey, let's do a really limited version of Star Citizen."
Yeah,
And
all I'm saying is it could happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying
Yeah.
it could happen, right? And you know what? I got to be honest with you guys. I hope it does. I think competition would be
Me
the
too.
best
Yeah.
thing
Yeah,
for Star Citizen.
sure.
And it's a kind of a bummer. I'm going to say something real quick. It's kind of a bummer that Star Atlas is going in the direction that it's going, because I genuinely think that NFTs aside, like, competition is a good thing for Star Citizen. So I like I hate that, that FTX stuff happened. And don't get me wrong, before that all that happened, I was like number one anti Star Atlas. I was like, this
That's
game's a
not true.
fucking scam.
Berks bought several cheese wedge ships
I
for
bought the cheese
$1,000.
ships. I swear to God, I did. I bought the cheese ships.
Oh my god. Well, hey, they're not out of the game yet. That was a huge hit to them, but they're still trying to go forward and find funding. So we'll just have to see. It doesn't look great, but they might not be out of it yet. I have a lot of hope for them. I know there were people who actually worked for CIG who went over there. And I want them to be successful. So I'm rooting for them in that sense.
Me too, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, and again, I don't think this is someone coming, like, my opinion is NFTs don't belong in video games. And that's a conversation for a different day. But I say that to qualify that I still want them to succeed. I really do. Because, I think Star Citizen needs competition, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For a while
the
there,
best
Elite
example-
Dangerous was pretty good competition for Star Citizen, and
Yes.
then they went in a route that, as a game studio and as a game, that just they maybe tried to be Star Citizen, where they should have and could have maybe done something a little different and been good competition while being different.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, the other part of it is, like, Frontier Developments has made, I don't know how many games.
Yeah.
Since starting. I mean, Elite Dangerous was 2014. And they've made, I can't remember all of them, but there's 2 Jurassic World games, I think. They made Planet Coaster. Somebody's going to list off a whole bunch of them.
The F1 22 manager.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
recently.
So, like, Frontier Developments isn't a single game studio either. So the fact that Elite Dangerous was pretty good competition with Star Citizen for a while, or the idea of it at least is kind of impressive in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that on paper, Elite Dangerous is a better game than Star Citizen in every way.
Yeah.
And I think this is why the delivery system of content is so important. And the way that Star Citizen delivers content, in my opinion, is better than Elite Dangerous. Now, is it again a better game on paper? No. But Elite Dangerous was also trying to be a different game. And that's unfortunate, right? Because a lot of us had hope that it would be a game that lived up to what Star Citizen, that same feeling. And I think that if a game developer was smart, they would make an Elite Dangerous Star Citizen like combo
Hybrid. Yeah. I've
like
been
a
saying that for
hybrid in
years.
between.
Yes. If they could melt those 2 games together, like the player interaction and like the level of detail that Star Citizen has with like the universe of Elite Dangerous and a lot of the mechanics of Elite Dangerous, I'd play it all day.
Yeah. And then that's just a perfect example there of Star Citizen is still just a thought. It's not a thing yet. It's still just something that's sort of out there and is in theory going to be something really special. It's quite special now on some of the things they've been able to achieve. I don't want to take away from any of those achievements whatsoever. They're quite incredible. That's the reason we're all here, is we cannot wait to have that game on paper inside the incredible achievements that they've made so far. But it's just tough, and I kind of want to switch the conversation a little bit towards solutions to the things that we all feel are problems. But I guess I'll start with Zero, since we didn't start with you at the beginning. What are some things that you would like to see do differently, even though you did sort of talk a little bit about it earlier?
Yeah, I think the main thing for me is just this, like, I don't know, ETAs is a good way to say it, but just some kind of like either more detail when a concept comes out, like we've decided what the ship is going to be, like 100%. We know the game we're making, we know the ship we're making, and now we're selling it to you. That would help. I think
they would have to
just
know the game they're making first, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they do yet. And that's not a knock on them, but it's just kind of the truth.
Yeah.
There's a lot that needs to happen still before they truly know. Look at the way, like I mentioned earlier, the way starter ships have changed, right? A little bit, like how the cutter comes to be, is they sort of know more now. So the style of ship has changed. But yeah, sorry, continue. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Like ETAs, knowing the ship you want to build and selling that. I mean, the Spirit's a decent example, I think, where like things kind of first came out about it. Was it brochure came out, something like that? Somebody's going to correct me and tell me exactly how it was, but because they always do. But
they're good at that.
Yeah, well, that's fine. It's whatever. People are passionate, but and it got a lot bigger all of a sudden. That kind of thing. Right now, people are talking about the Galaxy only has one size 3 shield, and that makes no sense. Well, it might not. The Corsair didn't have a size 3 shield until like I don't know 2 months ago. We knew that it was going to have a size 3. So just relax. But that's the problem, right? Is like they're selling a ship that says it has these things, and the community's like freaking out about it.
They got time to figure it out.
Well,
right, and then later
you make your financial decision based off of those things.
Right, yeah, and that's the
sort of
problem.
the
I think
like
that
having
feels
6,000 QT fuel.
Yeah,
no, you got to know that's a mistake. But yeah,
people bought it thinking it was intentional. Who here? One in chat. If you thought up until now that the cutter's fuel was intentional,
I saw
the
some
cutter having
silly
6,000
people
fuel
in chat with that. Yeah. You're asking
let's
my
say this.
chat though. They're all going to type one
Maybe
trolling.
at some point you thought the cutter's fuel was intentional. One in chat. 2 if you never thought it was intentional.
I'm typing.
And yet CIG is making money off this. You know what I mean? They're making money. They should have put out a statement day one that, and this is the kind of ill practice that I'm talking about that pisses me off. They should have put out a statement day one. Hey guys, we made a mistake on the cutter. I know you guys are buying this like it's a taco cell
killer.
on at 2 a.m. after the club, but it's this is not right. This is not correct. Sorry guys, we made a mistake, and it's actually going to have this much QT fuel. But why doesn't CIG make that statement? You know what I mean?
Did they never make it?
They never made the statement. There's been no official confirmation from CIG other than a dev asking a dev in my chat that the QT fuel is officially not correct. And I hate to throw anyone under the bus, so that's why I'm not saying names, but I'm not trying to get anyone. I'm probably
somebody's getting fired. Berks. They're getting fired. That's it. Berks just cost somebody a job in this economy.
I only say that because it's bad practice, and that's the same as like selling a concept ship with an empty promise. It's worse, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
It's worse.
Yeah, and that's kind of the crux of my big issue with it. When things don't feel like ethical, it's a strong word to use, but when things don't feel quite ethical about how something's being presented, and then people are making money decisions based on that. Well, what if the ship changes to be shitty, right? And then you want, I don't know, a Carrack instead or an Odyssey instead. Well, now you're like, okay, well, I'm going to melt my Galaxy and then I'll buy something more expensive, and it's like, it just kind of feels like this weird, like vagueness creates more profit kind of situation. And I don't like that. So a solution, maybe not a solution, but something they could change would be to remove a lot of that ambiguity when they present a ship for sale. Like, make your decisions, tell us what it is, have a very clear cut design of what it is, and then sell it.
Yeah.
Don't sell it until you have that clear cut, explanation of what it is and what it's going to be.
Yeah. I'd almost say
Berks, go ahead.
No, sorry. Just to add on to what he said, I would almost say that it would be better to nerf something after release than to nerf it with the idea that it was like too strong or it was intentional, than nerf it because they just forgot to mention or because they made a mistake or whatever, right? Like, for balancing the ship, because they don't know how these ships are going to perform until they get into Star Citizen. So,
Morph.
I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, they need to sell ships in order to make money.
Yep.
I maybe, I mean, there are some different strategies until Squadron 42 comes out to relieve that pressure of supporting that game's development. I feel like, they could do things like, maybe gussy up the gold standarding of some ship to say, hey guys, we gold standard this ship. We're putting on sale again. We're gonna give it a special limited skin for this resale. At least then they're doing something a little bit more productive with the resources and still making some money. Now I suspect it's not going to be as effective as a brand new ship. New shinies always make more money. But if they could in some way at least reduce that backlog, I think that would be probably for the better. So then they can also focus on and fixing and maintaining and modifying any ships that need that. Because what I really worry is that because the backlog is so big, it's taking resources away from fixing the ships that we have, which clearly all need a bit of a rework, considering all of these new systems that they're going to be adding in, and their new vision of the game today. It's just it's a little bit overwhelming just to think about it. I'm not even the person responsible for working on it. So yeah, I mean, more ships, sorry, no, more like skins and gold standard stuff. I feel like that would be a better way maybe to handle it. But who knows? I'm not the financial guy over there.
Mm. What about you, Berks?
Yeah, again, I have no problem with them selling concepts or selling ships at all. It's the way that they're being sold, right? Like
Okay.
they could sell as long like I think that it would be disingenuous to before like 3 or 4 more capital ships are in to add a single another capital ship to the list.
Like,
Or
even though this isn't a capital, I think that's sort of where a lot of the issues came from the galaxy. Is It's quite large.
Right. Well, I'm not necessarily saying the galaxy here, although that it does, I think, take away from the development of capital ships.
Yeah.
Because of its size,
Yeah.
or the Odyssey, or any other ship, right? I think that I'm talking proactively.
Mhm.
I think adding ships in the future that add to that list, I feel like until they can prove that they can get these out in a timely manner, I feel like is disingenuous. And not only that, but also on top of that, releasing ships that have like if they released another hacking ship or a data running ship, like data running, they were like, hey guys, this is the same thing as when they released the MSR, right? They were like, hey guys, data running is going to be in any day now. Don't worry. Like that's not what we want to see. What we want to see is, hey guys, here's this gameplay loop. Like if they released another salvage ship next patch, I would be like, hell yeah, let's go. Awesome.
Yeah.
Release another salvage ship, release another mining ship, release another trading ship, release another combat ship. I'm fine with that. But or a medical ship, but don't release another bounty hunting ship. Don't release like the Cutlass Blue is just sitting there with empty, cargo prisoner pods for the last however many years that it's been in the game now.
Yeah,
It's,
Herald, MSR. I mean,
all these ships. There's so
Terrapin,
many of them.
right?
Yeah. It's I think that's my concern is don't sell us promises that you can't keep. And I hate to be so vague, but the thing is like until CIG can prove that they can deliver on this stuff, I don't feel like it's fair. Now, what is the solution, right? I think that's part of the solution, but I think also them capitalizing on other ways to monetize. Like, I think that their skin system is at best at the moment. I think they can monetize a lot better at it. As well as like, I think that they need to be working on selling their character, the like transmog for maybe not transmog or just armor sets, but I think transmog would make a lot more sense. Like if you have a medium armor skin, you can apply it to medium armor. If you have a heavy armor skin, you can apply it to heavy armor, so on and so forth. And the skins can look cool. Like I'm not saying like add Fortnite skins in, but just stuff that matches the style of Star Citizen, or just sell the physicalized armors. I think they can make a lot more money on that.
You just gave me a really cool idea, Berks. I feel like they could also. Have you guys ever played PlanetSide 2 before?
Oh yeah, I love that game.
So like they've got these. They're not exactly transmogs, but they're like modifications to your vehicles. So like it adds some different things, like
spoilers and wings. Yeah.
Makes it look cool. Like, what if they sold like modding kits?
basically
for
trim kits, yeah.
ships. Yeah, trim kits for ships. I mean,
Wait,
that
wait,
would
wait.
be kick ass.
They could sell hex colors that we could skin our own ships. Wow, dude, that's a good idea.
way.
Elite Dangerous does this too. They have all sorts of different add-ons for different ships. Like you can change your Anaconda. Like if you guys know Anaconda is big ship. You can change your Elite Dangerous Galaxy.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a Galaxy, right?
Yeah, looking like a pirate ship. It's got spikes, like rusty spikes coming out of it and stuff like that. It looks badass. Doesn't do anything, but it just looks cool. Somebody sees that and they're like, "Oh, that's a cool looking ship."
But
and I
that's
don't know
what
how
we
much.
need.
It's like $7 or something, right?
Yeah,
you know,
that's what we need. We need more stuff that looks cool but doesn't do anything, because they've constantly sold you on what the thing can do and why you need it so bad. Like that, that's like the part that I can't handle anymore. This is the most difficult thing. You have these guys that are really passionate about the ship that they made because it looks so cool, but they put them in front of the camera and I guarantee the question they asked him or tell them to say is tell the player why they need this. Why does somebody need the Galaxy? And then you have guys like John Crew and whoever the bearded guy is, and these guys that I forget his name, and I really apologize for him for that. But anybody who goes on camera is up there at like a fucking car salesman, and it's like that's not. Mark Gibson, thank you. That's why they're not up there for that. They're up there because they did some really hard work and they're really happy and they're really passionate about it. But now they have to sell it to the player, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to sell it to the player. You should put out your really cool work and see what people think about it, right? And that's the part that's just like, oh man, I don't want to see that anymore. That's one of the parts that hurts me the most. But that's never going to change, you know?
I think a good example of like that is, so those of you out there who have a Gladius Valiant or a Pirate Gladius, the unique, where it's the same hull, it has the exact same capabilities, it just looks different, has a different skin. Maybe you have that pirate skin on your Cutlass or whatever it might be. Like you paid for that, and every time that you walk to your ship in the hangar, you get to see it, and you're like, that looks cool as hell. And when other people see it, they're like, that looks cool as hell, or whatever, right? Like more of that stuff, I think would, like they could sell, a Galaxy to some guy who's not going to see it for 12 years, he's going to stare at it in his hangar and eventually sour on the idea. Or they could sell 200 $5, skins for a Gladius, right? Or whatever it might be, or whatever ship, it could be a Carrack skin or something, spikes coming out of your Carrack. How cool would that be, right? Like pirate, your pirate Caterpillar could be like, have cool spikes and shit coming out.
They also don't have to sell as many because it doesn't take as long to develop. Right, like part of the reasons why these ships have to cost as much as they do is how much do they cost to make?
Yeah, true.
Millions, like maybe some of them. How much is the Banu Merchantman going to cost to make? I don't know. I mean, they said 2 people were working on it, I think. So it's like maybe not that many, but maybe in the entire life of that ship, the concept artists, the two people that were working on to bring it onto the game, maybe there was going to be a couple more. Then it goes to downstream teams. How much developer dollars does it cost to make a ship versus a little add-on for a ship, right? And
well, we saw how much
of them.
We saw how much developer money it costs to make a racetrack at Clio. Is it Clio or ETA? Yes. I can't remember. Wherever it is, Clio.
The current one?
Yeah. The Snake Pit. Like some guy made that in his spare time.
Yeah.
It's like some guy could put spikes on a ship in his spare time that are just they don't have collision.
Yeah,
there's no physics to them.
Free CIG devs.
I'm not saying they should do that, but I'm saying they could because they did. Like they've made stuff in their spare time, and it's in the game now. So it's
not their spare time either, to be fair. But yeah, it's while they're waiting for other things to happen. So they're being paid. They found a passion of, oh wow, this is something that the community really inspired them to do, and they did it. So
yeah, but there's another facet to this.
Downtime.
There's another very important facet to this, and that's the design leads and Chris Roberts. I'm sure a lot of this stuff has to go through upper echelons of approval and series of approvals in order for them to get passed, especially when it has to do with the look of the game. The reason why I think the racetracks got out so quickly is because they don't really impact anything important. They just add more gameplay, and everyone just agreed, oh yeah, this looks cool. So a developer can go out and kind of go wild. If there were no constraints on a ship like a group of 5 ship team members to make a ship. They could make a ship very, very quickly. It's the back and forth of approval and concepting and fixing and getting it to work the way that the vision, like Chris Roberts' vision is. That's what takes a really, really long time. So yeah, I think they should do the spikes on ships. Like, I think that'd be kick-ass, but I worry that whoever's in charge of approving that will be like, nah, I don't want spikes on ships, man. But I mean, it could look so damn cool, and you could make money off of it. I don't know.
It doesn't
CIG
matter.
could sell us anything. They could sell us like a little lunchbox handle spoiler for our like the already lunchbox handle on the back of a Hornet, and all of us motherfuckers would buy that thing for $5.
Yeah,
We would.
I mean, I think it's Morph. You make a good point, but I really hope that's not the way it would be. I really hope that they would give it a little try, see what happens, and then go from there, kind of thing. But yeah, it would.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if their concern is that they don't want it to look like Fortnite, and I've seen some people expressing that concern, they don't have to go that way. I mean, people mod their ships
have to be that
in
extreme.
like, think of the Millennium Falcon. There were like very subtle mods on the exterior of that ship in lore to make it faster. Like, do a little cool stuff, like add a few knobs on a ship. As long as the player knows that they're there and it looks cool and different, people want to have a unique looking ship.
They know
That
too.
would sell.
I mean, guys, they tried this with the 300i, right? They just went about it in a way that wasn't sustainable and didn't scale to the rest of the ships in game. Also, we have all the previous ships that aren't up to gold standard. But when you're going to like the gold standard rework, like, you should probably be considering Zero's idea when making those ships is to have little maybe attachment points for certain things to make it interesting. I don't know. It's just that's the thing is somebody mentioned it in chat that mobile games, Call of Duty, Fortnite, all sorts of other games have realized that players and anybody who's ever played an MMO ever knows that individuality is one of, if not the most important thing in games like that.
Yep.
Right?
I mean,
individuality.
I mean, this is going to sound sarcastic, but it's also honest. If we're being honest with ourselves, we will buy anything.
Yes.
I mean, if they put it out there, somebody's going to be like, "Oh, I need it." You know.
If I think it's cool, I'm buying it.
Yeah, and it's like if you changed the knob on the throttle of my Gladius, somebody's going to buy that. If you put tinted windows in that you could only see from the outside, people are going to buy it. If you, if you change the color that the thrusters on my Cutlass Black would put out, people will post about it and be like, "This is the coolest shit ever," and then they would buy it and they'd be in third person all the time watching that shit. That happened in Elite Dangerous, by the way. They have thruster colors that you can buy and apply to your ships, and you can change your laser colors in game. I think it's in game. I can't remember. All sorts of different.
Your HUD color for some damn. Remember, like people would always.
You had to change the game files to change that. But but yeah, I mean, these little changes that cost $1 or $2. I know it's like microtransaction-y, and I know that seems scummy in its own way. But at least you get something for it right now, and it's only $1 or $2. Instead of $350 for something you won't see for 10, 15 years.
Yeah,
and I feel like which one feels worse to you?
And you get that feeling of this is mine, my own, and not like everybody currently has the same ship.
Yeah, again, I feel like what we need to reiterate is that I personally have no problem with CIG monetizing at all. No. I think it's literally just them selling me something that does not exist. And at this point, I'm not sure it will ever exist, right? Like, until CIG proves me otherwise, I'm not sure that modularity will ever exist in Star Citizen. I'm not sure that, hacking will ever exist in Star Citizen. Will it? Probably. But CIG needs to prove me wrong at this point. That being said, I have no problem with them selling concepts or whatever. Do I think that like selling, ship knobs and like spoilers and stuff is going to make as much money as selling these copium-inducing concept ships? Probably not. If I'm being honest, if they did it right, maybe, but they would have to put a lot of time and effort in their cosmetic system in order for it to be as or close to as profitable as the concept ship sales. I think that if we're being real, I don't think it even would, if they did it today, made the change today, I don't even think it would be close. But I think that if they put time and effort into it, I think that it could be something that makes CIG serious money.
Yeah. I'll preface everything I'm going to say real quick before I jump into like my solution points of view is, we have these three guys here. They were all pretty cool with the idea of having a few of you guys call in the answer the call style of podcasts that we've always had here. So if you guys do want to get into the queue, I'm going to take like between 1 and 3 of you. So if you guys do want to jump into the queue, it is in my Discord and we can jump you guys in, and I'll just grab you in order that you can.
Now, Mike, if
yes,
I don't know if this is cool with you, so tell me if it's not. But
sure.
I mean, I think it'd be cool if we requested people who are specifically pro Galaxy, like pro, I guess like they're pro concepts. They have no problem with they think what we're saying is ridiculous, right?
Sure. I have an idea. Mod check. Are there any mods here on Twitch hanging out? If one of you guys can jump in and kind of screen the callers, and you can move them in order based on sharing some different perspectives than maybe what we've had since all three of ours are fairly similar. I don't know because it's a little late for me, but for the mods, but I'll double check. I'll add them in Discord and see if I can get their attention. But I think that's a perfectly fine and good idea. On my, just to get back to solutions for a moment. Okay, Rick's in there. He's asking. For my kind of solution scenarios is sort of similar to what everyone was saying, and definitely very similar to Berks. I'm at the point of I've been around long enough to have heard many things. And I'm not really cool with believing the things that are coming out of their mouths anymore. I only am whatever's in the next patch, what's actively being worked on, I am very easily excited by those things. And the idea of, if you want me to spend money, I will spend money on something that you've actually delivered and that you've actually worked on, and that you put the work in. It's in there. It's working. It may not be working perfectly, because the thing that I would now kind of throw back at you guys, a lot of the caveats or the, hey, when you're making a purchase here, you're making a pledge here, not a purchase, and so on, and all those things that pop up. There's really nothing there that, as far as I can remember, that lets the player know that there is no timeline to release for this item that you're buying when it's a concept ship necessarily. I believe it does say like, hey, this is a concept, but it doesn't really make very clear what, when you bought the Banu Merchantman, that 9 years later, it would not be in existence, right? And that's sort of the part that players are a little bit more educated than I was at the very beginning, and that maybe Zero was, and all these other guys. They're a little bit more educated on what they're getting into now than what they were then. But is it enough? I think the excuse of, well, this is an alpha gets thrown around a lot. Does that apply to a concept ship? I don't think so. So it's a little bit weird for that. I can totally accept buying a ship that is not fully finished. I can totally accept buying a ship that doesn't come with all its gameplay, and I could totally buy a ship that is in the game, but I can no longer bring myself to buy a picture. And I really fucking want to buy the Galaxy, but I will not do it because it just makes no sense to me anymore.
You know what's wild? How many people have said, probably 10 different times people have told me, the only reason I bought a Galaxy is so I can use the Carrack for the next 10 years.
Oh, because that's the
loaner.
That's the loaner.
They bought a Galaxy cheaper? Because it's cheaper than the Carrack, yeah. So like they know for the next 10 years they're going to have a Carrack to use in game.
Melt your Carrack, buy it for the loaner. Holy. I mean, like, is that not the perfect example of just how ridiculous this whole process is?
Yeah.
That guy's a genius. Man. Great for him, but like that's the world we live in with this game. That is just stupid.
Yeah. Hey, one last solution they could do is release Squadron 42. So there we go. Problem solved.
Yeah. And then my other thing is just more going towards cosmetics and stuff like that.
Let's say they release Squadron 42. what incentive do they have to stop doing what we're talking about?
I don't think they have much incentive, but they do have to get the other stuff done. They just don't see, like, I think that a lot of these new ships coming out are being pressed on by the need for making more money because it has
Yeah,
to
I don't
support
disagree.
Squadron 42. I think when that stops, that the people who are in charge of this ship, like John Crew, is going to say, hey, let's just kind of slow down a little bit. We've got 20 years of ships to do. Let's get some of those taken care of because now we're financially secure. Problem is Squadron 42 is not paying for itself. And that is 800 people working on a game that's not paying for itself. And like a skeleton crew working on Star Citizen. So yeah, that needs to stop. The sooner that can stop, the better it'll be for Star Citizen and the backlog
Yeah.
of
Don't say
ships.
skeleton crew.
I promise this
Abandoned
does
merchantman
pertain.
owners will be
This
mad.
does pertain to funding. But what do you think the chances are that the majority of people who ever will buy Squadron 42 have already bought it?
I don't
Huh?
think the majority of people say it again.
Has the majority of people the funding from purchases of Squadron 42? Have the people who have already bought Squadron 42, are those the majority that ever will buy it? Does that make sense?
No.
I don't
You
think
don't
so.
think so?
I think that there are way more people waiting for an actual product to play that are not interested in buying into a promise. I think there's like multitudes bigger potential buyers out there
I hope you
once
guys are
it's
right.
actually released. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if Star Citizen does, so let's say, what do you think they're going to sell it for?
Like it doesn't look, it doesn't even matter if it doesn't sell well because once it starts paying for itself, even just a little bit, it's going to be better for them because
Right.
then the Star Citizen ships don't have to
Right.
pay for those people.
Right.
I mean, I want it to do super well, but I don't know. I do think it will do a whole lot better because of all the negative press about Star Citizen. People will just be genuinely curious to try out the $500 million game. But yeah, who knows? Who knows how well it's going to sell? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball on that. I think it'll sell semi okay.
Let's hope. Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope that it sells enough to cover itself. I hope it does too. Like I don't think there's any reason to believe it won't, but I think it's a real possibility that Squadron 42 doesn't cover itself. And let me tell you why. Because if you guys didn't know this, apparently none of the Mass Effect games paid for themselves. None of them. And
That's
some of those are
interesting.
considered some of the best video games of all time. I know Andromeda has a lot of, drama around it. But even I think Mass Effect 2 is considered one of the best games of all time.
Well,
Very interesting.
If you're talking about purely like the sales from Squadron 42 paying for all the development hours that were required, I don't think that's ever going to happen. All I'm saying is that it's not paying at all for like the developers who are working on that right now. They're being paid from Star Citizen. They're not being paid from the sale of Squadron 42. That needs to start selling things so that it relieves the ship team's pressure to make more of these JPEGs to sell more JPEGs. That's the problem.
That brings up an interesting thought for me, is that I think a lot of people, and maybe what you were kind of touching on too, is I was one of those people when I first backed the game where I was like, oh, this Squadron 42 game, I'm going to add that to my, game package or whatever it was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So like you get Squadron 42 with it, right? So, and Squadron 42 is still a $20 add-on to most things. I can't remember. I think it is something like that. But I think that the sales of the pre-order for Squadron 42 is probably been declining. Like you have one on your account, you don't get another one, but you buy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ships, right? So as you get closer to Squadron 42's release, maybe that jumps a couple of times if they give updates or whatever. I don't know. But I think when Squadron 42 is like release dates announced, maybe a pre-order special goes on or something, and then when the game releases, that's going to be a big tell for me of like, okay, the game's out. Kotaku has their article out about it, all these other companies, and it gets this publicity. So I have to see how it sells, I guess, post-release Squadron 42 is kind of the big question for me. Because I think that its pre-order sales in the Star Citizen community are at the very least like a flat line. It's not like exponential like ship sales are, I think, or at the very, or I think it's probably been going down. Like you buy Squadron 42 once, you're not going to buy it twice, probably. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't remember what triggered this thought in my mind. It was something that Berks said about incentive to do something, and then Morph talked about the $500 million game, and people want to see what that's like. I think one thing that we really have to recognize when thinking about the funding and everything of Star Citizen is they don't have a bank account with $500 million in it right now. And in many of the financial reports that they've given, as massaged as they probably are, they're not making much at all. Most of it is going into the progress and the development of both of these games, and Theaters of War, I'm sure somewhere in there being made as well, right, guys? I mean, come on, hold out for that one. It's going to be great. But the idea of the incentive to release everything, like, I think people aren't really recognizing the fact that this is $500 million over 10 years. Many, many, many games have made significantly over $50 million in a year by releasing a successful product, right? And that's something that's happened many times. And there's no doubt that CIG wouldn't rather do that. So, like,
Yeah,
I always try to keep that in my mind, is that there is the idea that they can coast, and Chris and Sandy and Aaron can continue to make their C-level salaries or whatever that people make get angry about, right? And that's something that they could do, or they can make an insane amount of money by releasing a good game. So why wouldn't they want to do that, right? So there's definitely that.
Yeah,
totally.
Fortnite's made 2.3. I was like 2.3 billion in 2020, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
but
it's possible. It's out there.
That number is not widely distributed. It doesn't make news because it's I don't know why. Whatever, there's probably politics to it or whatever within the industry. It's just that Star Citizen is known for 500 million. We know that that's not a lot of money in the industry, but everybody says, "Oh, that game that cost $500 million and there's still not a game yet." That's what
I know
people
you guys
about it
know
for,
this.
so
This is more
yeah.
for the people watching and stuff like that. Is it's not that Star Citizen has yet to be a success in my point of view as a video game. And a lot of people attribute all this success to the ship sales. But in reality, when Star Citizen will actually be a success, it shouldn't be because of its ship sales. It should be because of its game sales, whatever that looks like, which will probably still be ship sales. Like, let's all be real here, but I think you guys know what I mean there. Squadron 42 game sales and the sale of Star Citizen as a game, not the next great, experience that you might have in this fancy new ship, right? They'll start selling the experiences that you're having in game, and the ships will only enhance that experience. And that's what will actually sell and will actually make money. And there's no doubt in my mind they want to get there, but they're doing all this kind of malicious bullshit that we don't like. I think Morph mentioned it at the beginning, where they're kind of hovering, and they've been coasting all these years.
There's a fork in the road, kind of, and you have the fork in the road where you go down kind of a Milcar community path, which, I mean, some would argue they've already done that, whatever. But you have this, you start going down that road, and you only have so much time to turn that car around and get down the right road again before you kind of have to go down that road, because you've been going down it so long, you can't change that. And that's kind of an odd question for me, is like, have they gone far enough down that road where they can't turn around?
No.
Or is there a way that they can get back to the things that feel better? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think they have yet.
No, because they don't have the game to support it yet. And they can, I think they can continue. It's very clear that they can continue to do what they're doing now based off of the sale yesterday, right? Because they had great success with that, and good for them. Again, not knocking the fact that they're making money. There's no doubt about that. Berks, you want to say?
Go ahead, Berks. Yeah, sorry.
It looked like he was ready to jump in. No?
No,
Sorry,
no.
Okay.
I was not at all.
No problem. I'm trying to keep an eye and be a better host than I normally am. So, so they're I think they can continue down the road that they're going, but they are at a bit of a fork in the road where it's time, and I think the community is in the back seat of that car saying, are we there yet? in a lot of ways for some of these things that we've been waiting for, and it's time to start kind of pushing towards some of those things that we're trying to get to, and it can't always be about the next ship. It's got to be about the experience that the players are going to be having in this game with those ships. So salvage is a start. The whole scraping and things like that, they're kind of getting there, but yeah.
Now, I think I've said all I need. I've really wanted to say tonight about the subject, but there's
Same.
one thing I do want to add here at the end before we go to callers or anybody else says anything. I unless something really unexpected and drastic happens, like Chris actually runs away with the rest of the money and is never seen again, which I just can't see happening. I mean, like some people probably say, yeah, it's gonna happen. Sales are continually year on year improving at huge levels. I don't see that stopping, at least for the next 3-4 years. I just can't see it happening.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's, even if they change nothing and they don't listen to us at all, which I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen, they're going to continue to make money and continue to fund the game until they get Squadron 42 out. I just hope they get that out sooner rather than later so they don't dig this hole deeper.
Yeah.
So
anyone else, your final thoughts before we go to some callers?
Yeah, I just had this thought earlier. Like, so when we first backed, a lot of us, Mike, you and me, and Morphin, I mean, even Berks, like we bought into a dream, I think. And so when we backed, it was kind of like whatever they make is what they make, and I'm excited. You know, I'm excited for this dream. And I think a shift in the last, I don't know, year, maybe 2 years, has kind of been like we're kind of looking at accountability, you know, and we're kind of like, all right, so you know, we bought into this dream, but now like we have something to grab onto, and it's like they keep kind of pushing what the next thing is and what the next thing is, and it's like we want that, you know. And so I think there's kind of been this shift from the community dreaming, you know, to the community wanting some accountability, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, not at all.
Is it relevant at all that Xylo is confirmed that the Galaxy hangar is XXS, I think, opposed to XS. Xylo CIG has confirmed with the ship team and will reflect shortly on the website.
Nice.
So what does that mean? That people
It's got a smaller hangar than people thought.
So it just holds things like the Pisces and maybe like an M50 at the
I think
biggest?
it's the same size as the Carrack. Is an
That makes
XXS.
sense.
Okay.
That makes sense, yeah.
All right, be on the lookout, everybody. They're going to give you guys $25 back for your $350 purchase.
Yeah. No, I mean it kind of makes sense, and they just made, you know, another error. I saw somebody in chat too that made a comment on like how do they continue to make these errors. I mean, it's not that hard. We're human. That's how that stuff happens, and you just get to see it all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't find that stuff to be that big of a deal.
This 6000
get
QT
frustrating.
feels a bigger deal for me, to be honest.
It's a bigger deal to not address it after making the mistake, just like you said.
Yeah.
See, like Xylo addressing this as, I mean, 2 days later is
Weird. Really weird.
Yeah.
It's weird that
Yeah.
they addressed this, but not the other thing.
It should happen instantly or
Yeah.
almost instantly.
This is
Yeah.
the moment somebody brings it up. It's like how many social, like you have a social media manager, you have all these things, like just post. Just everything is marketing. Nothing is community engagement.
Yep.
In a
It
lot
reminds
of
me of that
ways.
stipend thing. Remember that stipend where a bunch of people got like 50 million
Yeah.
credits after the wipe? And it's like, yeah, clearly it was a mistake, but then people bought all these ships, and then it's like, well, we're going to redo the stipend. And it was like,
Yep.
just rewipe it like minutes after it happens. Like as soon as you realize that it's a problem, just put out a thing and say, hey guys, we're rewiping.
Yep,
We're going to
whoops.
start fresh again, and we're going to give everybody 1 million credits. Like that's how it's going to be. No muss, no fuss. But a whole week went by, and people had like dozens of millions. Then they spent it, and then some people had those millions and got it all removed, and then the stipend came through, and some people got a few million, and some people got. I mean, it was just like,
Oops.
it was just kind of a mess of like waiting too long, and then the fixes.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I was a casino employee just now. It was a holiday weekend. Somebody in chat said it was a holiday weekend. Do we really
Yeah.
expect, you know? But I work in a casino. There are no holidays. So when it comes to like just making a quick little tweet or something like that, should we expect CIG to do stuff like that too, as far as communication goes? I would, because I work in the United States. There's no such things as holidays, and especially like working in the casino industry. So I don't see that as a thing, to like you just do your job whenever possible if it needs to be done, as long as it's just like a quick little take 5 minutes and do this thing real quick and just clarify something, but not like he doesn't have, somebody doesn't have to work an 8-hour day for that is what I mean. But yeah, I
like
think
let us know that it's there.
just do your job sounds really shitty, but that's not what I mean. I don't mean it in that way. But anyway, guys, we've been going on for a little while, so we're gonna go to some callers. And before we go, can we get some claps in chat for like producer Rick and producer Zeus, because they actually like went through the callers and found like what they wanted to talk about and put them in order, so we actually have like a well-produced show today. That's kind of weird and something you guys aren't used to. Any callers, just no cameras, please. Don't turn your camera on, okay? And then everything will work just fine.
Yeah, we don't want to see your face.
Yeah, your filthy face. No, it'll just mess up all of our cameras, so please don't. All right, our first caller is the derpiest turtle. Derpy, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sweet.
Welcome
To the show. I gotta turn you up a little bit.
Today?
What? Did you just ask
What's
us what the question?
Yeah.
What? You just joined the show. We got to take our claps back from producer Rick and Zeus, because what do you mean? What's the question?
I think about concepts, right?
Yeah. I thought you were asking us what it is.
Oh no.
Okay.
I'm all right with concepts because I'm not going to buy them, but I understand that it's not the most moral type of thing. But moral is kind of out there as we play the game that's funded from it, so it's just hard. I personally love the game, and I don't want to like to see it fail or like stagger in a sense, so that that 20-year backlog becomes 40 to 50 years or something. You know what I mean? And there's other games that just don't fit it for me, like that I want to play, like Elite Dangerous or Space Engineers. They're just not at that level, even though I love them. Like as games, it's just not the same. So I think with the ideas that you guys had about changing or like expanding on the funding model so that concepts aren't like the focus are great ideas. I don't get how they haven't done that, or had internal talks, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not the developers or anything, so I can't really know. Or the marketing team or whatever.
I thought you had a different opinion from us. I guess not.
No,
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said. I agree with 100% what you just said. Yeah.
Giga chat ideas.
Mhm.
Yeah, can you say something controversial real quick so we can shoot you down?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm
We need the
Morpho's right.
content.
The A2 does need to be nerfed. I don't know what you guys.
Oh God, we got it. All right, he's got to go.
Not that
He's gotta
controversial.
go.
Get him out of here.
I'm loving this stream, guys. This has been very entertaining and like eye-opening, because I don't hear this a lot. It's like a bunch of spectrum floods of just ideas, and I'm just like, I don't know about that. And yeah, it's nice to hear.
Okay.
We appreciate
thank
you,
you.
man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks,
All right,
Turtle.
let's get someone in here who hates us, bro. Who
Yeah,
hates
that's
our
what I
guy.
want.
You guys
I
later.
want it. Yeah, he doesn't
See you
hate
later.
us.
Oh,
We need,
I mean,
we need
listen.
some haters.
Oh
All
shit,
right.
he just kicks him.
He just gets
He said all right.
Yo, Turtle, we love you, man.
He
We
knows I love
appreciate
him.
you, bro.
He knows I love him.
We appreciate you, bro.
He said all right bye, I thought, so I sent
He
him out.
got nuked.
Yeah. All right, let's see if Lieutenant Bradley hates us. Lieutenant Bradley, do you hate us?
I hate you so much. Can I
Oh,
stay?
nice.
Good start.
Yes, you could stay.
All right.
Welcome.
What thing do you hate most about us?
Can I say everything? No. No. So, no, I'm not gonna say that. Come on. I mean, I love you guys. I mean, honestly, we have how can I hate everyone at this table when we have on one side some very optimist content creators and some that are more skeptical. So I think we have like different, even though you all agree with this specific topic, I think you're on different sides of the spectrum, so
Okay, fair.
it's difficult to. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I do have something that is. If you want to talk about something controversial, I do have a topic for you guys. So, we have always talked about people calling Star Citizen a scam,
Okay.
and every time, we do have arguments to counter this and say, well, no, it's not a scam, because even though they're making a lot of money out of it, they're not right now, anyways, in a very profitable model, and everything they're earning, they're spending for Squadron 42, for their. So we do have a lot of arguments to counter that. However, when we're with the new recent drama, when we see a model where we basically have them trying to sell us future projects to finance finishing something that is an ever-growing list of projects that they still have to finish, that starts to really become that it has a lot of similarities to what we could call a Ponzi scheme. I'm not saying that it is, but I'm seeing some similarities to it, where they need to keep promising new future projects to new potential clients, just so they can fund and produce what still has to be done. And that becomes a vicious cycle that usually doesn't end very well. I do think they can get out of this, that it's not going to. I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom, but don't you guys think that this is kind of starting to fit the definition?
No. And why I don't think it does is because I think the definition of like Ponzi scheme, scam, all these things are more where there's malicious intent behind it. Whereas I think the issue here is how CIG perceives us internally versus how they say externally how they perceive us, where, oh, we're the greatest community, oh, bar citizen, oh, let's do some video intro for fucking CitizenCon or something like that. Everybody's so great, kumbaya, kumbaya. But internally, we're just investing in the next thing that they want to work on, or we're just a consumer. Is more of how I view the issue here. And the more that you see the Cuddy Steels get released, the concept ships, and the other things happen, the more I feel that internally they look at us differently than they speak about us externally.
I agree with that, and I think that I would lean almost a little bit more to the right of like what you're saying in terms of I think that honestly there really could be some unintentional scamming going on, or maybe even kind of intentional. I don't know what the internal dialogue is though, right? When they release the Odyssey in concept, a polite scam.
I was just going to say that.
The Odyssey in concept, do you think that they're having conversations of, oh yeah, this might not be in the game for 10 years, or do you think that they're just like extremely optimistic about their release dates? Like,
So
I would love to be a fly in the wall and know how they talk about the timelines of these ships. I mean, they would never talk about that publicly, but I'm curious, right? Because they have to know of the buildup of the backlog. They have to know.
I'm sure they know, and they just don't want to say it because they know it's going to be very negative.
Yeah,
It's just the
it
reality.
would make waves.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I do agree that I don't think they're intentionally like building the model as a Ponzi scheme. I don't think it's intentional, but I do think that some of the bad mouths that want to talk against Star Citizen could start to draw comparisons to these kind of. So
Of course, and those people, sadly, Star Citizen makes it very hard to discredit them as the years go on.
exactly.
Okay,
So
it doesn't mean they're right, but CIG makes it very hard to discredit the naysayers of their company and their game. Every day it gets worse. It gets more and more difficult to be like, like it's crazy. It was a meme to say Derek Smart was right a long time ago.
True.
It's not that fucking funny anymore.
But if I just may do a quick follow-up, then do you guys think that it might be because the discussion on Spectrum, for the record, I'm actually the one that started the conversation about maybe slowing down on the large, not all concepts, but the very large concepts. But do you think that it would be wise for them to keep selling concepts, but maybe just dial back just on large concept ships? Because when you look at their sales this year, had they not, before the Galaxy was even put on the store, they were already at a record over 90, I think it was 92, 93 million. So even without the Galaxy, they made a hell lot of money. A lot of it probably on the cutter, a lot of it maybe on Corsair, I don't know. But they're, even without a big concept like the Galaxy, they are funding the game pretty well. So wouldn't it be reasonable for them to keep their system, but just dial back on any concept that is bigger than 100 meters, for example,
Or dollars.
or dollars? Yeah, well, 100. It's very easy to go over $100, even for
Right.
small ships. But
You know, I never quite gave my solution that I had thought about. I don't know how viable it was, but I really just I don't like the idea of the concept ships. I guess maybe we can go just for larger ships in as well. But if you were going to release one straight to flyable or something like that, just charge more than you initially would have done for the concept, and make the money back after you finished it. Is just sort of how I'm starting to feel. Is
Or
you
at least
really
as
are
it's
only
close to release.
yeah, or closer. Yeah, not
Yeah.
these like it should already be in gray box before you ever showed the concept to anybody. Show the
Yeah, like the-
concept. I don't give a shit. And don't show any of the actual work internally, and just do your marketing play that you do, but it should be maybe like
look
in
at
line.
this. Look at the Spirit. I think everyone has a very positive reaction to the Spirit because there is, for now at least, there's the people have a better grasp of where the Spirit is in the production. That we know that they're starting work on it. We don't release, but they know that there's like a plan and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Whereas a concept like the Galaxy, when we just put it in this big blob of large concept that exists right now, there's no more clarity anymore. If you look at the comments on their YouTube, I think that's the first time I saw that on their YouTube channel when they did the ISC that showed the Galaxy. All the top comments are, "It's a great ship. It's beautiful. It's amazing. What an amazing ship." But I can't make sense of putting a dime in something where I have no reasonable comprehension on when I'm going to see it.
You know what they should do? They should do like a Domino's style delivery, where if it's like over 30 minutes, it's for free. So if it's over 10 years, 10 years, you get it for free.
I actually really like that idea, but it's not.
You get all your store credit back after you bought the concept.
Yeah.
5 years goes by. It's like, all right, buy a different ship.
50% off.
It's never happening, guys. Just buy something else.
But it is so funny to say, actually. To think about.
I mean, it's honestly a great idea, but they're never gonna.
No.
So it's.
No,
we laugh about that, but that it feels ethical to do that, right? Like we sold this concept ship, and things changed, and we couldn't get it in production in the time frame that we wanted to. So we're gonna give something back to you guys. Like that feels like a good
guy thing to do. Yeah.
A good guy thing to do, right? And when it's like, we've got your money, doesn't matter when it comes out, that feels worse.
You know what nobody's talked about that I think would also be an incredibly good solution that might not be ready yet for monetization is selling habs and outposts and stuff that is like completely cosmetic, that isn't going to benefit the player in terms of giving them an advantage, but like selling stuff that's going to be specific to the player in terms of that. Like, man, whenever they released the Orson, I was so surprised that we didn't see some sort of, hey, you're going to be able to buy a one of these little habs at Orson.
An apartment.
Yeah, an apartment. I'm so surprised, honestly.
I'm not, because when they try, I mean, remember when they tried to sell plots of lands and that really didn't go well?
I'm not talking about land.
What do you mean it didn't go well? I have two.
Do you have a Pioneer? Do you have a Pioneer?
I have a Pioneer, yeah.
So yeah, you
that
do
is
have
the
one.
only ship I F5'd for ever in my
Right.
life. The
And then
only
it's
one.
a-
Well,
It's the most
Well,
unique out of anything that they. It is the only ship that that one was like, holy shit, this is crazy, and I was full like lost in the sauce at the time.
Just wait, Mike.
Lost in the
Wait,
sauce.
Yeah.
I was
wait
lost in the
until they
sauce.
make the
I like that.
Pioneer
I was drinking it
XL.
up.
Here's the thing
no,
too.
the Pioneer Killer.
Yes, the next Pioneer Killer will come out, and then you'll be regretting your decision.
If
That's right.
they
I was just
if
But
they
saying-
it'll
sold
only
Habs
be a
and stuff,
concept.
they could do it like instance versions of the Habs like GTA, and nobody would ever know. You know what I mean? Like it. Well, not that you would never know, but it could be
That-
seamless. Is what I'm trying
They're
to
going to
say.
do that, Berks. Yeah,
They should, and they should.
Well, they've talked about the tech that they need to do it, and they're going to do it, and then it just comes down to them selling it after. It's 100% the stuff's planned.
Yeah,
It would be
modular
so
gameplay. Yep.
crazy not to, right? It would be insane.
Honestly, if they do this to kind of switch to a different business model, I think it would be received positively.
Yep.
But if it's just to add to just to make more and add to what and not change anything to what they're doing currently, I don't think it's going to be received well. If the intent is to kind of make a switch, I think people will be open to it.
Mhm.
But if it's just like another avenue to make money, I'm not sure the reaction is going to be positive.
Yeah, it has to be a shift from ships to other things instead of an additional revenue stream. As bad as they probably do need additional revenue streams right now, for me to be okay with it, but in general, yeah, that's going to be it. But Bradley, I got room for one more caller, so we'll let you go, and I really appreciate it, and it was fun.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
man.
Have a good day, guys.
Thank you, man.
You too.
All right, and Maestro is going to be our last, and we'll try to keep it kind of quick. Maestro, can you hear us?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Turning you up a little bit.
You all suck. Just kidding.
We know.
I agree. Oh yeah.
So I'm on board with the ship sales and even the concept stuff because you've already talked about how this is the funding model and they're kind of stuck in it. But yes, they could do more. But I don't agree with the idea that it's not ethical. Because I think it takes away personal responsibility from other people to do their due diligence when they're looking at this. I don't think people buying, shipped out large, the Galaxy and up, don't know that this could be a while. There's nothing there that says any kind of time frame. They don't promise anything. Yes, we'd all like that they would have these things started. I have the Spirit, and I got lucky because it actually, I guess it's on the roadmap for now. And there's so much that we don't know about what's going on there. So it's hard for us to say a whole lot when we don't know the internal workings. If the BMM was, put on hold because they lost a person, well, that's a legitimate thing. It's unfortunate, and they have to, find some way to deal with that. And if they find someone who can take over for it, then that's great. If they have to move on to smaller things, I guess that's all part of, the reality of what we're dealing with here.
My question to you though is like the personal responsibility of things. The only way for us to know that the concept ship was going to take this fucking long is for it to have happened. So when the only information that you have is coming directly from the company, where's the personal responsibility?
Yeah. It's tough.
There's so much information, like from you guys. You guys all do
Now.
a great job of informing people of
Now.
what's really going on.
Right.
Yeah, now.
But if you were
but what
like
about the
a
people
part of
who
the
bought the
original
Banner
sale,
Merchantment? Yeah, like the personal
And they were like,
responsibility
yeah, it's only
wasn't
gonna be-
there.
right? And they're like, hey, it seems like it's only going to be like 2 years away, and everyone's hyping you up like that, and CIG's hyping you up like that, and you have this like feeling of like, yeah, it won't be that long, and then now you're 6 years later staring at the list, going like, oh, how did it get here? And you
And
had
then-
no idea.
Yeah. And then now let's apply this to the current sale of the Galaxy a little bit and go, somebody just checked out Star Citizen, and here's something that I stated before this show, and that I never said to any of us, is there's been a lot of conversation around the Galaxy in particular and this specific concept sale, to where Google searches and all these things are up, views are up on YouTube, like all these things happen. And when that stuff happens, people who've never heard of Star Citizen will see it. And they will come across this some people, probably not that many, but some people would. And in this scenario, where is CIG saying, helping that player create their own personal responsibility on this specific sale, right? Where's the idea of a general timeline of when this thing might come out, right? I absolutely agree with your point of personal responsibility, but I don't agree with the way you have to find it. You shouldn't have to find it through me, Berks, Morph, or Zero. It should be straight up from CIG, and it's not. It's the vagueness. It's the vagueness we talked about earlier in the show is what makes a lot more money, and that's
when I get out my credit card. When I get out my credit card to look at like back in the game with a ship or whatever, like I think the details of that ship should be there, and I think if they aren't there, why not? You know, it starts to look like the details aren't there, so I buy the ship with no details, you know.
I mean,
and that's partially like personal responsibility for me to make that decision, but at the same time, like I'll use clickbait as an example. There's clickbait out there; it's part of YouTube, right? It just is what it is. It's just part of the culture. But sometimes it's like egregious clickbait, you know, where it's like really, you know, scummy, and you're like, well, that's scummy, you know. Like you look at a certain one, and you're like, well, that's really scummy because it's not at all. You know, articles do this all the time, like this person confirms what everybody all suspected about Brendan Fraser's on-set behavior. I've seen an article titled exactly that, you know, and you click it and it's like, he's a nice guy is what the whole article says. And it's like, well, of course, but it's super clickbaity, right? And you're like, well, that's kind of scummy that they did that. So on CIG's part is like, how much of these, like this hyping things up and this, you know, and then not having any details and vagueness, you know, in their marketing leads people to kind of make a decision based on the hype rather than on the details. I think is
Don't
tough.
blame them for their pitches or their ads. I do have a big problem, and it's inexcusable how they screw up the PDFs of the ship details, like the Spirit. But I think everything you're talking about comes when they go to buy the thing. That long paragraph, and I don't have it up right now to quote it, but after that lawsuit in Europe, they make a point about you're pledging to help us make the game. And yes, all of us want the game to be done a long time ago. Not many people have been around the long time to know that the game changed from one thing to something different. So whatever it's almost like they almost get a pass in my mind because they changed the game. And whatever ships were before that, they weren't prepared to really do that, perhaps, you know, because they made mistakes, but they're learning along the way. But that paragraph tells you, you know, what's up, and you were not entitled to expect this thing tomorrow. I don't buy, you know, the big expensive ships. I'm not into big ships, so I'm kind of, I have a benefit there. I'm just not into big ships, and so it's never really a problem for me to buy those. But Mike, you're working in the casino industry. You know, whales make your industry work, and we need whales in this. Otherwise, this isn't going to work.
I don't think you're wrong, but can I ask you a question? Do you play other video games besides Star Citizen?
Not really.
Not really. Have you can you name a video game that you played besides Star Citizen?
So back in the day, you know, SimCity. I have Anno right now. I'm not a gamer in the sense of like a lot of people are.
SimCity and Anno are fucking games.
Yeah,
I love those games.
Those are great games. But let me give you an example. Is if you open up like the new Call of Duty, there's like 2 long paragraphs, not paragraphs, like essays that you have to scroll through that are like the UCLAs, right?
And
the
of course you do. Yeah.
And it's like, who's reading those? And I understand, like, at the end of the day, if they have some like clause in there that's like, oh, they're stealing your data, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's on me as the user to agree with that. But it doesn't make it any less shady for the company because you know that you're buying the game dream, right? You don't know, you understand that. You understand that you're funding the development. You're not buying a specific quote unquote ship, but CIG is intentionally selling you a ship, right? That's why they use the verbiage they do. That's why they promote the ship that they do. They're guising it legally under this idea of like, oh, well, you're just helping fund the development. And you're not actually buying a ship legally, but then everything in marketing goes, hey, you're buying this very specific ship in Dream and it's changing the way that multi-crew gameplay is working and modularity is coming. We're bringing it back, baby, you know, like just for this specific ship. And so it feels disingenuous when it's presented that way. And I think that's what we're saying.
That one was kind of icky. But yeah, they gotta make their pitch, or so they think so. I don't think they even need those pitches. If they just put out the PDFs, people would still buy it anyways. You know, and the pictures.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's also just like the people interested in the game the amount of comments I saw that thought the ship was going straight to flyable because there was a hollow version of the ship flying around in the ISC, sort of, with, you know, very limited animations on the thrusters and stuff.
Yeah,
we got some. You know, I see those people in the casino too that think the straight flush is coming next hand also, and you know, it doesn't happen very often.
That's for a chance to win, right?
So,
At least we get a loaner.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I don't know how they could do better other than the shows that they present. And like Mike, that reaction you did to Grumpy Eye and even the Morphologis' stuff about, you know, how they're doing this. That's in the clips he showed. If you watch those, you kind of see what's going on, and it really does look kind of bad on them because they seem to kind of shift things. Like, why did they start the BMM if they were going to finish? Well, then you find out that they've lost somebody. Other than them coming out with a weekly news thing that spells out all those things, I mean, we get little pieces here and there, and this information is sort of there if people go to the roadmap, like a lot of people are always talking about, and do watch the show. And people aren't going to read anything anyway. So even if they put it in some long form or even a short form paragraph somewhere, they still wouldn't read it. You know, this is a YouTube generation. Everyone wants to watch it. And so they'd have to watch all their stuff and to get, you know, these tidbits here and there to see what's going on. So I don't know what else they could do besides that. Because like I said, I don't think people are going to read something that really digs into all the details of what's going on in the company, and this is why we did this and this. And also, when they give us too much information, that can be problematic too. I mean, I don't know if you guys work in IT, but you give too much information sometimes, and people use it against you. You know, to like, because they think they know what they're talking about with, you know, the systems.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much living in that world with CIG where they want to bring you into the development aspects. Now everybody thinks they're a fucking developer, right? You catch every single one of us has done it at some point and just thought that, you know, we understood how it works and just don't, you know. So that's been something that's happened. But Maestro, I think it's probably time to call it. The show's a little over 2 hours, so I want to start trying to cut it off here. But I really appreciate your point of view and thank you for that. It's this is tough. This is a tough situation to be in, and I'm not envious of people at CIG that have to try and make this work.
Morphologis, sorry that you got so beaten up with that stuff. I like your content, and now I haven't watched the rest of you guys, but I'm gonna start watching the rest of you guys too. You guys are
That's right. Get him out of here.
Get him out of here. Don't watch me, bro.
I guess I have to react to more of their videos because he's watching the reacts. Maestro, thank you, man. We'll check you later.
Thanks,
Thank
dude.
you,
man.
Bye, buddy. All right, so yeah, that was our callers. We've already done some final thoughts, but any last words before you guys want to head out and let everybody know where you come from so they can watch some of your stuff if they haven't yet? I know, like, this is the very early morning crew where that's more of me and Morph's lair, where you guys are a little bit more of the later night. So Zero,
I'll go first. My thoughts are: don't give shit to the community devs in people's chats for this situation. If you guys give shit to like Jake or Galactica or somebody, I will come to your house.
Whoa, calm down.
I will
I've
pee
seen
on your
somebody get
doorknob.
banned for this.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, right. Sorry. I'll
It's
say
okay.
hi. No, I'll pee on your doorknob and then I'll tell you to touch it. Right. So don't do that.
Listen, I don't know about you guys. I'm about to give Xylo shit. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm
But
kidding.
yeah, no. On a serious note, like understand that the company direction isn't really pushed by necessarily one person, especially not the people that you interact with for the most part.
Yeah, almost definitely
And
not.
it's very important that these people are working hard and they're just living life and they're just doing their jobs as best they can, and they want to make a great game. And there's just a lot of other things in the way, and those are the things that I think a lot of us have problems with.
How many companies have you worked for or worked at that the people up top making decisions that aren't in the front of the line make your life really difficult, right? I
All
can't
of
imagine.
them.
Yeah, all of them. So I can't imagine this is much different. So, Morph.
I think I already shared my closing thoughts, but I like to
Yeah.
echo XeroState's comments there at the end. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not any one of those developers' decisions, and there are often things that are not considered that they kind of keep close to the chest for why they do the things they do. So
Mm-hmm.
we all just want to see this game succeed. I mean, I don't think anybody here hates Star Citizen or anything like that. We love the developers. We love Star Citizen. We just don't like the marketing team. They can go. Yeah, touch a feet on doorknob. No, I'm kidding.
Oh God.
I kid.
We're gonna pee on the
Even the
marketing
marketing
team's
team.
doors.
Okay.
They're gonna be really
Alicia, that's-
uncomfortable at if I ever tour a studio, they're all gonna have like garbage bags over their doors.
Oh God.
Me and Zero.
I think my closing thoughts are that, obviously, this is a policy issue, probably from up top, right? This is a funding issue overall. Obviously, the people who are working on ships or even working in marketing aren't responsible for the way that ship sales have gone over the last 10 years. Now, I think that we were talking about personal responsibility. I think that CIG is equally responsible for the way that ships are distributed and marketed, right? So I think that we pretty much said everything that we need to say, but I think overall, someone asked earlier if everyone feels this way, why do you still play Star Citizen? And I think that what I want to reiterate is I love Star Citizen. I love streaming Star Citizen more than I like streaming any other game. I love the community. I love the game. I love the vision of Star Citizen and what it could be. And I want to see it succeed. I really do. I don't want to halt funding. I don't want to, I'm not calling for the community to stop buying ships. I just want to see a positive change in the way that we are being sold concepts. And especially after we were promised that concepts would stop a long time ago. So I hope CIG listens, and I hope they can come up with a solution that works for everyone, that doesn't feel so gross. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing that I would say is that the only, the word promise gets thrown around a lot with Star Citizen community members, like, oh, you promised to do this, you promised to do that. The only real promise that they ever make is a concept ship, that they are going to make it at some point.
True.
And that's something I'd like to hold them a little bit more accountable for than maybe they've been held to in the past. And that's, I think, kind of where I'd like to leave it is that's the only promise, and I'd like them to start keeping those a little bit better, because there's no way in hell that when they release the initial concepts of some of these 7, 8, 9-year-old concepts that they thought it would be like this, and neither did we. So yeah, that's really it. But if you guys don't know, the mods were announcing it, but make sure you guys check it out if you're watching this on YouTube. That we'll put Berks' links, Morph's links, and Zero links all in the chat. Make sure you guys go check these wonderful people out if you haven't yet. And I just want to say thank you for everybody coming on. It was fairly short notice, and I just want to do more stuff like this in the future, because
yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, it's fun to have conversations like this. I haven't done podcasts like this in a while, and it's refreshing and fun and exciting. And thank you for coming on. You guys are some of my best friends and people that I respect the most in this community. I don't talk to a lot of people, and you three are some of the people I have the most respect for. So thank you. Or I have the most respect for, not some of the most respect for. So thank you for being you guys. I appreciate it.
Well, thank
And
you.
make sure to
Absolutely.
make sure to check out
mutual.
Berks' OnlyFans, onlyfans.com/BERKZ.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That probably is one.
Somebody took Berks with an S, so
I'll
Gotcha.
I'll show a foot on stream right now. I swear, I'll do it.
All right. I'm going to end this thing now. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everyone.
all right, man.
Thank you so much for watching. Check all those guys out once again. Bye now.